Rocket Raccoon is the best and most diverse support character in Marvel Rivals. Do I have your attention now? I want to talk about Rocket Raccoon because I feel like a lot of people rag on Rocket Raccoon a lot and say that he's trash. I feel like people only say that he's trash because he's different from just about every other support outside of Adam Warlock. I put Rocket Raccoon and Adam Warlock in the same category because they're both the most unique supports in the game because they're not the same as every other support that we have right now in Marvel Rivals. And to make the support role more unique and to keep it fresh and not have it become stale over time, Marvel Rivals needs more support like Rocket and like Adam. Let's talk about it.
Now a word from our sponsors.
Hi, before using Dubby, I was a father of 12. But now, after Dubby, I'm a deadbeat dad.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let's see what we got in here for the Dubby. Big Dubby! We got the motherfucking... We got the motherfucking... Oh, shit. So the first flavor of Dubby, we have peach and beet.
You what?
Second flavor of Dubby, we got the dragon milk. Next flavor we have laxative.
What?
Laxy grenade. Next flavor we have this is a zero sugar powder pack. And last but certainly not least, we have Pines Berry Splash. I'm Wasabi, and this has been your Dubby advertisement.
To further explain what I mean, Rocket Raccoon and Adam Warlock are the only supports in Marvel Rivals where their ults aren't just I press Q or I ult and give you a bunch of health or give you a bunch of shield like how every other support ult is in this game. Like people would joke about it all the time and say Luna ult is like Luna ult, Sue ult, Cloak and Dagger ult, Mantis ult basically makes it so you're invincible, right? Or unless the Magneto decides to throw an oversized asteroid at you and you just die and it cancels your ult. But otherwise than that, you're basically invulnerable and very few things can kill you through these ults. But Rocket Raccoon and Adam Warlock do not have such ults. Rocket Raccoon has the damage amplifier, which does not heal you at all. Adam Warlock has a revive, which on paper sounds good, but everybody comes back at extremely low health. So unless your healers are there to get everybody sort of back to full health like immediately, and especially 99% of the time, especially 99% of the time, this ult is horribly placed and it's placed right in front of the enemy team. So they just kill you again and now you're just brought back to life for nothing essentially. And we need more supports that have ults like this in Marvel Rival because we already have too many supports to where their ults are just you're not gonna die, and the support that is ulting can only die by like very few means. Like Luna and Cloak and Dagger can really only die, like Luna ult, Sue ult, Cloak and Dagger ult, Mantis ult can really only die from like Magneto ults. Punisher ult I think shoots you out of Luna's ult if you just kind of like stay, like if you take too many bullets. And of course they all die to Iron Man's ult if he manages to aim it right and actually hit you with his ult, right? But with there being very few ways to die like in these ults, and Loki is kind of in this too because he has the sort of Echo like ult where he can copy any hero within his line of sight to get their ult, but majority of the time, or basically all the time, he's gonna end up copying the Luna or the Cloak and Dagger or even the Mantis on your team or the enemy team just so they can get those 12 seconds of basic invincibility back again so that y'all can win the team fight. And majority if not all team fights in Rivals, especially in rank, end up being decided by how your supports use these ults because they're really pivotal to either winning a fight or losing a fight. Luna, Cloak and Dagger are especially notorious for this, for being able to hold a point by themselves with their ults with no one else around them, especially Luna ult, because unless they have some of the ults that I said beforehand, you basically can cap the point and stall it for 12 whole seconds until your team gets to the point and another team fight ensues. And if you have a Cloak and Dagger on your team, once they get to the point and ult, it's another like 10 plus seconds of to where you can only die by very like certain things. But what I am caping for in this video is to have the team behind Marvel Rivals put more ults in the game that are like Adam Warlock and and like Rocket Raccoon. We need more ults like Rockets and like Adam Warlocks. Because if every support is just gonna have basically like invincibility frames for 12 seconds, and that's how every support in the game is gonna be whenever they introduce one, then playing support is gonna get really stale really. None of the supports are really gonna be different. All of their ults are essentially gonna be the same thing, just with a different coat of paint on it. And I don't want that to be the case, because I want support to be, you know, I want support to have a lot of variety in the way that you play it, because it is called support. It's not called healer, even though a lot of people call it healer. You do a lot more than just heal by people. Even as Rocket, I know a lot of people say he's just a heal bot, but Rocket is kind of like the best person at, like, you know, shooting deployables. They have a Moon Knight or a Groot on their team. He's really good at shooting deployables, which is what you should be doing with Rocket, by the way. You should be shooting the walls at the bare minimum if you're not gonna shoot the enemy team, because his damage falls off really quickly. And even with Adam Warlock, high-level Adam Warlock players are basically a DPS that can heal themselves. He's basically played like a DPS, just like how Mr. Fantastic is played like an off-tank, because he has a lot of survivability. And Rocket Raccoon as well, similar to Mr. Fantastic, has a lot of survivability because he has a lot of movement. Anybody can attest to say that it is really hard to kill a Rocket Raccoon, especially a good Rocket Raccoon player who has their movement down packed and knows when to use their dashes to get away from people and not waste it. And with these being the only two characters who essentially don't end up having a heal ult. I know Loki doesn't have a, you know, heal ult per se, but the only good way to use his ult is to copy Luna Snow and Cloak and Dagger to essentially get another heal ult. So I'm lumping him in with them, because Loki basically makes it so you have like 24 seconds of a Luna Snow ult, which you basically are invisible in. Now, the only support that I know that's coming to the game rather soon than later is Ultron, and I would hope that Ultron also has a different ult that's just not a 12-second defensive ult that people can, you know, that people rely on and honestly use as a crutch in team fights a lot, which I understand because they're great ults because they keep you alive. But we need different types of ults. Like maybe this one gives you like a movement boost, or maybe it acts like Suzo and makes you invisible but doesn't, you know, doesn't give you so much extra health or something like that, right? We need more utility based ults. That's kind of the word I'm going to be using, to where they're useful but they're not just, oh, here's an ult to keep everybody alive because everybody's losing the team fight. I need them to be useful in different ways so that it would make support feel more, you know, it would have a lot more variety in the support player role, instead of it just being rather heal body at times. Because people say that Rocket Raccoon is heal body. People say that Rocket Raccoon is, you know, like 99% of the time just a heal bot. I feel like, me personally, that's kind of how every support plays in Marvel Rivals. Now, this was Overwatch, this would be a different situation because they're always kind of played like, you know, off DPS kind of. But in Marvel Rivals, there's so much damage being output like from both teams to where you have to be heal body. Where if you're not basically being a heal bot majority of the time, or unless you know for a fact you have the team fight in the bag, your team is going to end up dying one by one in like 2 seconds. So as long as you're basically pocketing your DPS and your tanks, and they can confirm kills, you know, rather quickly, you'll win every team fight. But to make the support role better and honestly more fun, we would need more fun ults or better ults, so that every ult isn't the same and that every ult isn't used the same. Because right now the best support ults are used defensive. Rocket Raccoon is the only ult that is used offensively. Like if the Punisher on your team has his ult, you can drop Rocket's damage amplifier to give him an extra damage boost so that he can melt them even quicker than he already would with his ult. And even high level Adam Warlock players, they ult kind of like right when the team fight starts, especially if they see that they're going to be on a choke point, so that they could come right back and get right back into the team fight. And they kind of use it as like a set, they kind of use it as like, you know, okay, I know we're going to end up dying with this ult, I know we're going to end up dying in this team fight, so let me pre-ult to where I won't have to worry about, you know, falling back if, you know, 3 of my teammates die. It's a kind of piggyback off a point I was saying earlier. Basically, as of me recording this, I'm Diamond 2, and essentially from what I've gathered with my 400 plus hours of playing Rivals, every team kind of relies on these ults and they kind of use them as crutches, because I've seen teams literally fall apart when they don't have these defensive ults as a crutch for when they're losing the team fight. Like say for example, if you have a Rocket Raccoon using using the Punisher team up on your team, and you have Adam Warlock on your team who's using his team up with like Star-Lord or something like that. Teams kind of crumble when they don't have those defensive ults to fall back on. Like your DPS don't know when to fall back. Your tanks don't know when to get behind a wall so that you can heal them. And people just kind of don't want to like press the S key. Like people never want to back up, it seems like, because they expect you to have a defensive ult to make them invincible for 12 seconds. But when they don't have that and they can't rely on that to win the team fight for them, they end up yelling at you, say, hey, go Sue, go Luna, go Cloak and Dagger. Or one of the DPS on your team ends up one of the tanks on your team ends up going Luna or Cloak and Dagger so that you can have that ult to rely on. And I feel like once the game like advances even farther, I feel like we might end up being in a place where teams won't have to rely on ults like that to, you know, win team fights and to even just, you know, win games. But I've noticed that teams use that as a crutch because they know for a fact that they just want to W key into team fights every single time. And if you don't have that ult to back them up, then you're a bad healer and you need to switch off a Rocket or switch off a Adam. And I feel like once we get more, you know, utility based ults for supports, like once we get more of a variety of support ults, people will be more used to you picking a support that doesn't have a, you know, bunch of healing or shielding ult, and people will get used to that and they will, you know, team fight accordingly essentially. But as it is right now, there's so much damage being pumped out by both teams, especially with unironically Rocket's damage amplifier. You kind of need those ults, and with those being 90% of support ults, it makes sense to say, hey, like let's use and abuse them while we have. And even with Luna and Cloak and Dagger's ult being nerfed, they're still incredibly strong, and they're basically the same as they was beforehand. And I would very much argue that the support role, once we start getting these ults that, you know, are more of a variety and more of a different level than just here's this big ass bubble to where if we stand in it we won't die, I feel like the support role will be more of a fun role to play. Because now, while yes, you do need to provide, you know, damage with supports, unless you're Rocket, because unless you're close up with people on Rocket, you don't really need to doing damage that much because damage fucking sucks. But majority of the time, even when you're support who has a defensive ult, you still need to be providing a good amount of damage in. But I feel like maybe the game one day will shift into a place where we can, you know, live it. I feel like the game will shift into a place where one day people will be okay with not having two, or majority of the times 3 defensive ults to rely on. I feel like, in my most humblest dive into opinion, once we've gotten to the point to where the 3 support meta is here, but it's not as bad as I've seen a lot of people make it out to be. But even then, once we've burned through Luna ult, Cloak and Dagger ult, Mantis ult, or if you have a Loki where the Loki copied the Luna or the Cloak and Dagger ult, and we still lose the team fight, what's the excuse then? Because unless it's the worst placed Cloak and Dagger ult, or unless they get killed out of it, once we've burned through 3 defensive support ults, and we still lose the team fight, it's kind of no point in having them, right? Because I feel like a lot of teams use them as a crutch because it takes them too long to confirm the fucking kill. Because I can give you the Luna Snow ult, I can give you the Cloak and Dagger ult, I can give you the Mantis ult, but if nobody dies during those ults, then we're basically back at square one before I ulted. Like, no progress was really made, nothing really happened. So what was the benefit of us doing all those, you know, invincibility shits if nobody died? Like, you're looking at the top right corner of your screen, nobody on the enemy team is popping up in the kill feed, it's just people on your team. Now all of a sudden everything was pointless. But people get mad when you give them a damage amplifier to help them secure the kills faster, you know? Like, I just feel like teams are using the ults more as a crutch and not for a utility way, right? Because the more I've been playing Luna Snow this season, the more I've realized that, like, there's basically no point in me switching to the damage side of her ult. Like, I think I've done that maybe twice this entire season. Because back in season 1, you basically were just flip-flopping the entire time and it looked like a fucking EDM show. But now there's so much damage being pumped out constantly that you're basically just on the healing side. Even when you're winning the team fight during your ult, you don't really switch, or at least I don't really switch. I haven't seen people really switch to damage, because when they do switch to damage, 3 of their teammates are on critical, and the moment they try to switch back to healing, it's too late and 2 of them have died. And now you're backpedaling. See what I'm saying? And even with Cloak and Dagger, Magneto players have gotten used to using his ult and only using his ult to kill Luna Snow and to kill Cloak and Dagger out of their ult. People have whole compilations of them doing that. And with Mantis ult, I don't feel like Mantis ult really does anything anymore. I don't know if they nerfed her ult, but her ult just kind of feels like it gives you a speed boost. Like the shield that it does give you, a lot of the times it doesn't really feel like it gives you enough. It just kind of feels like it's just there to keep you alive for like an extra second. Like you can't stall a point with Mantis ult like you can with Cloak and Dagger ult and Luna ult, because it gives you extra health, but it goes away so quickly that it doesn't really matter. But my main point is that I need the Marvel Rivals devs to add more and more, add a better variety of support ults, because I don't want every support ult to be, oh, here's this big ass bubble to where we don't die in, or here's the, or I'm gonna, ult the entire, domination point to where we don't die. Give us an ult to where we're just invisible but we don't get shields, or give us a speed boost, or make us be able to give us a support ult that lets us all fly like Storm and the Human Torch and shit like that. Something unique and not just the same thing over and over and over again, but with a different coat of paint on. That's all.